Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam, and on behalf of Book Soup, I'd like to thank you all for joining us for our next virtual event with Rob Halford of Judas Priest and Kory Grow of Rolling Stone, here to discuss Rob's new book, Confess, an Autobiography. Thank you so much for your support of Book Soup. As you know, this is a very difficult time for independent bookstores all over, so we greatly appreciate you joining us for our ticketed event. And if you did choose the option without a book, you are still able to purchase via our website or your local independent bookstore. And if you prefer an audiobook version, I shared a link to our Libro FM audiobook, link at the top of the chat, which if you prefer to listen. We'll be hosting more virtual events in the near future, which you can learn about on our website by signing up for our email newsletter or by following us on social media at Book Soup. And our next scheduled event is coming this Saturday at noon, and it is with Arvin Ahmadi in conversation with 13 Reasons Why actor Tommy Dorfman to discuss Ahmadi's new LGBTYA novel, How It All Blew Up. So if you're interested in that, like I said, social media, website. So tonight's virtual event will end with a Q&A, and to submit a question, some of you already have, please use the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen. And if you see a question on the list that you'd like for our speakers to answer, you can click the like button, and it'll bump it up in the queue, and we will try to answer as many questions as time will allow. So with that said, let me introduce our guest speakers for this evening. Rob Halford is an English singer, songwriter, and musician. He is best known as the lead vocalist of the Grammy Award-winning heavy metal band Judas Priest. The band have released 20 albums to date and continue to tour together today. Halford lives between the Midlands in the UK and Arizona in the US. Kory Grow joined Rolling Stone's staff in 2014 and reports on music, movies, TV, and culture. He also writes reviews, news, and criticism. Previously, he wrote for Revolver, Spin, Guitar World, The Village Voice, and other publications. During his time at Rolling Stone, he's interviewed Ozzy Osbourne in his dressing room, Metallica in their tuning room, David Lynch behind a replica of Twin Peaks Red Room, and David Gilmour in a trailer behind the amphitheater at Pompeii. Thank you both so much for being with us tonight. It's an honor to have you both. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the camera over. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Hey, Kory.
Hey, Rob. How have you been?
I've been great. You know, when Sam was just talking about some of the people that you've interviewed, I know most of them, but I'm kind of intrigued as to all of these interviews and the places that you did them at. That sounds great. Are you going to write a book, Kory? You should write a book.
Maybe. I don't think it'll be as good as yours, though.
Well, I think everybody should... everybody can write a book about their life because everybody's life is different. And although there are a lot of parallels in everybody's life around the world, doesn't matter where you're from, there's going to be things happening to you like they happened to me. And we've taken all of those things that have happened to me and we've put them into this book, Confess. That's not a book, by the way. That's just like a large poster.
I've got one too.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for doing this and for speaking with me. I loved the book. I read it very fast and went through it and found so many just great stories in there. I think maybe too, just before we really get into the book, I just wanted to ask, because I'm sure people are just wondering, how have you been hanging in there with everything that's been going on in the world and everything like that?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, this pandemic, it's just been a life changer for so many of us. And the terrible side of it are the loved ones that we've lost to the pandemic and anyone else that's dealing with health issues at the moment. For someone of my generation, it's particularly difficult. I have to really quarantine myself, especially here in Arizona, which has got hit pretty badly. We're getting better now, though. But this is the great thing about this subject about books, because we're all finding ways to kind of keep ourselves occupied and pass time, and books and music and movies. They're a wonderful way to escape and to get through a day. So I'm doing good. How about you, Kory?
I'm doing well. Just day by day. And like you said, just reading books and doing things like this and being able to get face to face with people is still nice. Even when you can't literally, So, obviously there's no concerts or, this would probably normally be an in-person book event, but like just to be able to do this, I think the fact that people are finding ways to get around it is pretty cool.
It is. It's great. This is one advantage of technology that I'll embrace. Don't get me started about the internet,
Yes.
especially my business and your business to some extent.
Yes.
But it's true, particularly for a bookstore get together. I was so disappointed not to be able to do this in person. So we are planning at some point, whenever. I want to come and see everybody that we've made these virtual events happen. Got a Book Soup and all of the other people that I've done virtuals with, and just meet people in person, you know, because that's what I do. I love meeting people. That's part of the great thing of being in a band. You travel the world and you meet so many people, and I just love to sit down and talk and what's going on, how you doing, did you enjoy the show, what did you have for dinner, that kind of thing. And so we'll get round to that eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that note too, what I liked about your book is there's just so many stories about so many people you met, so many places you've been. There's funny stories, there's heart-rending stories, you know, it's all very candid. So I think maybe to begin with, one thing I was wondering is just why did you want to write a book, you know, rather than keep your private life private? Why did you want to put it out there?
Because I think eventually, for someone like myself, especially that's had the great thrill of being in this wonderful music world for so many years, 50 years with Judas Priest, there's inevitably going to be the unauthorized biography. There are plenty of books that are about Judas Priest that are not about Judas Priest. They've been put together by this person and that person, probably with the right intent. But if you want the real story, you go to the source. So that was part of what drove me to think about making this book happen. And then, as importantly, was my partner in crime, Ian Gittins, who's a wonderful, wonderful man. And it turns out that he's a local guy. He's from my neck of the woods. He's from the Midlands, almost close to my hometown. Wow. Which, for me personally, made the delving into the really deeper parts of my life a little bit more easier, because here was a guy that talks like me to some extent, has the same accent and walks the same streets that I have. And it's like having a friend. When you're with friends open up with each other because there's an element of comfort and trust. So all of those elements combined made the time right for me to confess. Yeah.
Talking about accents and like that sort of relatability, I wonder if there would be so much yam yam in the book if you weren't talking with another Midlander.
We did. Yeah, Ian and I are going to be doing a virtual pretty soon. I didn't know that until I just found out. I just checked my emails before we went live, and he said, shall we speak in yam yam, and confuse everybody. Here's a bit of yam yam. How am you doing? Which is, how are you doing? Where are you going? Where are you going? Where have you been? Where have you been? That's yam yam. It's a wonderful characterization of where I'm from.
Yeah, I loved all those parts of that. Is there any particular reason why you wanted to write a book now? Like, why was the timing right to do a memoir?
69 years, you know, it's a long time to live by any standards, you know. And part of me was, shall I hold back till I hit 70? But everything was in the right place. And of course, you know, you talk about silver linings. What a silver lining this is, as we're all getting through what we're getting through together. People are consuming books left, right, and centre. So the timing couldn't have been better in that respect. And also, this is downtime for Priest. You know, we finished a massive world tour with Firepower, went around the world 3 times, and so this would be kind of downtime, or we'd be writing.
You can hear me.
As we have been doing. We'd be writing as we have been doing. So everything fell into place, and just because of the calendars having to work, this was the moment to make it happen.
That's great. How did you go about remembering everything and recalling everything? Did you talk to friends from your youth? Did you track down people and like get stories, or was it all just still right there and fresh and vivid?
I was surprised, really, because my memory is pretty much intact. The only kind of residual stuff that was left over from my drinking and my drugging is that now I have to use a teleprompter on stage, because
Mhm.
I don't think I've got short-term memory loss. I haven't even had a test, you know. But you know, there are certain songs that I just, my mind just filters off into a different direction. So my teleprompter, my auto cue, is like a safety blanket. I don't need it 100%, but it's there just for me. So having said that, again, the way Ian encouraged me to remember, he's an expert, and you know, we didn't go in a timeline of chronological moments. One day we'd be in the 50s, the next day we'd be in the 80s, then we'd be in the 70s, and that's a great way to kind of stimulate the brain cells and pull things from the past. But yes, we did go to some sources, especially Ian
Mhm.
Bailey,
Yes.
and my sister Sue.
Hmm.
On occasion, we had to reach out to Sue, and you know, she told me the answer. I go, oh God, what couldn't I remember that? You know, it's insane. But apart from that, yeah, we got through it relatively easily in terms of remembering what we needed to remember.
Hmm. That's great. Are there other autobiographies or memoirs or things by other people, historical musicians, whatever? Are there like, what is there anything that inspired you to want to like do this, or any tech? I know we talked a little while ago about like Bob Dylan's book. Was that one something, or were there other things like that that inspired you to want to do this?
My other half, Thomas, is an avid reader of autobiographies. You know, if he wants anything for Christmas or his birthday, it's an autobiography. It's
Mm-hmm.
all, and it's musicians, whether it's Bob Dylan or Pete Townsend or Chili Peppers or Aerosmith or Keith Richards.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his room is full of books.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when we do our night walks, which we do every night, he'd always telling me about this chapter or that chapter. So I'm sure maybe that was a little seed that was planted
Mm-hmm.
before we got into Making Confess. But most of those books that I mentioned came from the source. You know, they are from the people that the books are about. They are authorized, fully authorized publications.
Right.
So it's fascinating because, you know, you see us as a fan. There's that guy on the stage. That's Rob Halford, the metal god, and this incredible band Judas Priest, and then you read a little bit here and a little bit there from this interview or that interview, but that's what's on the top layer. You know, that's
Mm-hmm.
just where the obvious is speaking for itself. But when you talk about walking to the equivalent of early high school, and you have to walk over canal bridges and try and avoid breathing in toxic fumes from the local metal factory,
Pig iron.
then that's
I
the
learned that
pig
from your book.
iron.
Yeah.
Then there you go. That's like, well, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
then being arrested on the way back from Ken's house by two coppers who thought I looked like this guy that had just robbed this old lady, and of course it was a complete case of mistaken
Yeah.
identity.
Yeah.
And the way that they took me to the lady's house, and she's like, no, that's not him. And I was miles away from home, and the police just left me there to walk back.
Horrible.
So little anecdotes like that, and then obviously the real dark stuff as well.
Yeah.
I've done my best to let you know everything about my life in the most truthful, honest way.
Yeah. I really appreciated that. Did you set parameters for yourself of what you would and would not talk about, or did you just want to just open the floodgates and see what happened?
Yeah, I wanted to do exactly that, Kory,
Mm-hmm.
because that to me is the true essence of a memoir, of an autobiography. It's everything, absolutely everything. If you leave anything out, particularly something that's vital, then it's incomplete. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like watching a movie with an important scene that's been edited away. You have to wait for the director
Mm-hmm.
to do the director's version. It's that kind of thing. So I said to Ian, I'm just going to spill my guts, you know. And he
Mm-hmm.
goes, that's exactly what I want you to do, because I was going to say, is this anything you don't want to talk about? And I said, no, and that's all relative to the fact that on my clean and sober journey, I've just become a more honest, open person. I'm pretty fearless now. You know, fear is just a manifestation of the mind anyway. So I just said, let's put it all down, and then we'll, as we go into editing, we'll deal with what we need to do then.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. I mean, like I said, the book is incredibly candid. That's why I was wondering. Were there any memories that came back to you when you were doing this that you maybe were long forgotten, that were like really fun or funny, that you were really that just came back to you, or something maybe that Ian or Sue or somebody reminded you of? Is there any anecdotes that?
For the most part, it was all pretty fluid, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Just really really memorable, because I think that's what happens in your life. You know, if you're 20, you can generally remember things, little milestones, memory milestones in your mind from when you were a kid and going into your teens. And then as you're 40, 60, whatever, they tend to pile up, as they always do. But you know, Kory, you've caught me here, because I know there must have been moments like that. And
okay.
they've just gone into thin air. So you have to read the book.
Right. It's been
read the
so
book.
long. Yeah, I get it. Oh, I mean, yeah, the book's great.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really appreciated about the book was the way that you talked about Judas Priest's early years, because it's one of these things where, you know, when I discovered Priest, you guys were, you know, it was the metal god, you know, it was, you know, I knew the songs were all on the radio, but reading about how you guys did duke it out, opening up for bands and stuff like that on the road, and you know how hard it was pretty eye-opening, because like I said, you know, I think probably a lot of people maybe came into it a little bit later. So I'm just sort of curious, when you're revisiting that part of your life, what strikes you about like Judas Priest's early years and starting out, when you think back on that time?
It's a wonderful part of this journey that all bands go through. When you start off with your band, firstly it's about your music, because your music leads you. And then it's this very slow chipping away progress of building a fan base and a following, firstly in your own country, and then getting on the ferry to take you from Dover to Calais, or from Newcastle over to Stavanger in Norway. And we go into detail to cover that part of the commitment and dedication that you have to put into your work. And be prepared to, you know, we got paid, but shall we put petrol in or shall we have something to eat? Well, we've got to put the petrol in the van, you know, we'll eat later. That kind of thing. All bands do that, no matter where you are in 2020 or 1970. The commitment that you've made to each other to persevere and carry on no matter what gets in your way is vital, because it's the simplest thing in the world to go, I've had enough, I'm going to pack it in, and all you're left with afterwards is nothing. You know, you've got some memories, but where you were aiming for has now gone. You know, and I know in certain circumstances you don't have an alternative, but if you're able to really stick through those moments, and it's very much like serving an apprenticeship in any line of work. It helps build you as a band. It builds your character. It builds the bond and the strength that you have with one another, and so that's important. And those early days are important, and they're all in Confess. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciated the anecdote in there where, you know, they talked about Iron Maiden sort of mouthing off, saying we're gonna knock Priest off the stage when we're opening up for them, and you were just like, we were like that when we were opening up, so that doesn't really bother me.
No. I that's it. We're all in. You know, it's no different to, you know, you support your favorite soccer team or basketball team. Now we're going to crush you tonight. That kind of thing. It's that spirit. It's not meant in any other manner than just competitiveness, and competitiveness in its healthy form is very useful and brings rewards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I liked about that. Something else that stuck out to me reading it is, you know, you described British Steel and Painkiller as it's kind of sort of Priest's masterpieces, and I was sort of wondering what makes a perfect Priest album, because obviously you're still making records, you're still going out, you know, you have a plan when you're making something. Like what are the things that you're aiming to do?
It's the same as like the Avengers. What was the best Avenger? Which was the best Iron Man? They're all good. They're all great, but some of them push forward a little bit more than the others, and that's the case with Priest. I could equally include Sad Wings of Destiny, or even
Yeah.
Rock and Roller, the first album we ever made. But there are times that you get to as a band, as musicians, where all the pieces fit and everything connects in a very special way, like they did with British Steel, which is a standalone kind of Priest album, and Painkiller, and now most recently Firepower, equally
Yeah.
Screaming for Vengeance. I mean, every one has its worth. It's just
Mm-hmm.
that some of them push ahead a little bit more than the rest.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that somebody in the little chat next to us wrote "Screaming for Vengeance." They're excited about that one too.
Okay, yeah. I'm trying to read what's going on at the same time as I'm talking to you, but I see everybody's throwing things out, and I really appreciate that. And Kory's keeping an eye on things, and we'll get to your questions in about 30 minutes or so,
Absolutely.
20 minutes or so.
Another thing that struck me about your book is you've just had all these incredible encounters with people. Like I loved your Andy Warhol story with the handcuffs. I loved you meeting Queen Elizabeth and her asking you, why does the music have to be so loud? What would have been sort of the times, and maybe those are them, I don't know, where you're just sort of like, did that really happen to me?
Yeah, like meeting Superman in a fur coat. Who knew? Today you're going to meet Superman in a fur coat. Nah, whatever, There he was walking towards me at Pinewood Studios. I'm having a break from rehearsing with the band. I just go for a stroll outside, and up the hill they're doing the famous helicopter scene where Superman rescues Lois Lane, and they've got this full mock-up of a helicopter on a crane. They're practicing for the shot, and then towards me I see this person. I go, that looks like Superman. Oh my God, it is Superman. It's Superman in a fur coat, and Christopher Reeves, and we kind of acknowledge each other. And he goes, "Hey, buddy, oh hi." You don't know whether you say hi, Superman. I went, "Hi, Superman." I could have said Chris, but he was Superman right then. Hey, Superman, what's up? He goes, "Oh, just taking a break for the next set." I go, "Oh, that's what I'm doing." He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm a singer for this band, Judas Priest, and we're rehearsing here for a tour and so forth." "Oh yeah, great. Good luck with everything then." "Yeah, same to you, Superman. All the best." And he walks off into the fog in the mist of Pinewood Studios, and that was real. It was really. It's like you cannot make up something like that because it happened.
Yeah, that's amazing. Another thing like that struck me just was some of your stories about what you guys used to do on stage. I don't think anyone could do some of these things anymore, like with the bullwhip. And then you talked about having a machine gun during genocide and things like that. Like things have changed so much. That's the other thing.
Society changes as society is changing right now. I've seen that. I witnessed it at one of its strongest moments in the 60s. The cultural revolution here in America, 60s, particularly music, really shook up the world. And now we have something else that's happening. Sadly, it's nothing to do with music. It's a whole nother ball game, and I won't go into that. But this thing about, we did a tour where I actually went on stage with a fully automatic machine gun, obviously with blanks, but at the end of a genocide song, I would shoot the thing off, and it would be great until the Spinal Tap moment and the blanks jammed, and the band slows down to an almost dead stop, and I go, pull the trigger and nothing happens. Wouldn't that be great if when people pull a trigger on a gun, nothing happens? But,
that would be great.
But anyway, we'd like put pew a couple of sad blanks, and it was supposed to be a metaphor for this horrible thing, genocide. But you couldn't do that now. Nor would I want to wish to. No. But the bullwhip's still there. Ka-tow, ka-tow.
Right.
And the handcuffs. They'll never take that away from me. You will know. I'm going to say something funny now. If you have to pry that bullwhip from my cold, dead hands. Charlton Heston at the NRA. Oh God.
Yes. Another thing that I just want to ask you about, just out of sheer curiosity, is the Saw recordings that you talked about. This pop trio of songwriters that you worked with in the mid '80s. That, you know, they obviously worked with Kylie Minogue and Rick Astley and people like that. Are these recordings in a vault somewhere, just sitting there? Are they, you know, because I'm so curious to hear these. I know there's little bits of them online, but
Yeah, Pete Waterman, who was also from my hometown, Walsall, back in the West Midlands. He's got them. He's got the master tapes in his safe at his home.
Mm.
And every decade or so, somebody will ask him about those tapes. I had a cassette somewhere, and I don't know where the hell it is. It's in a box somewhere back at my house with those 3 songs, and they're great. You know,
I'm sure. Yeah.
the one song, "You Are Everything," which is who did that, Kory? "You Are Everything and Everything Is You." Who did that? Was it the Stylistics? Was it the
Yes.
Stylistics?
Yeah.
It
Correct. Yeah.
was. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
How did I remember that?
It's in your book.
That's a great example of a great song being able to have any interpretation and an adaptation to it. So I love that version. The Priest version is just fantastic. It's got all these strings and backing singers. It's just wonderful, you know.
Wow.
But it's heavy. So there's that one, and then there's the other 2. I can't remember the titles now. What one's called? I Will Be There, and then Run Around, I think, is the other track.
Mm-hmm.
And they're great songs. They're great, like, rock pop songs. And you know, the reason we didn't release them was this fear that there'd be a tremendous kickback and pushback to them.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. It was just a simple exercise. I remember saying to the guys at the time, I know this is going to sound absolutely insane, but why don't we just go and hang out with Stock Aitken and Waterman for a couple of days in Paris and see what we can do? And typical of Priest, everybody went, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. There's never any, oh, that's impossible. That's stupid. That's ridiculous. That's what I love about Priest.
Mm-hmm.
Even now, when we're writing, somebody will go, I've got this idea. It probably sounds dumb, but I go, no, you try everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great template for life. Try everything, because you can't talk about an idea until you've gone through the motions and figured out if it's going to work or not. So that's what we did with Stock Aitken and Waterman. I think it worked, but, you know, there you go.
I think after reading this book, probably a lot of people are going to be curious to hear those. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're safe somewhere, those masters. Something I want to talk about is just, you know, like I said, the book is incredibly candid. And I think if there's any real thread through the book, it's just how much you struggled with your identity and having to hide your sexuality, and you know, the toll that took on you. I mean, I guess just in general, like, what was the toll that, you know, like when you're looking back at it now and you're reliving and you're thinking about it, and obviously you've been out now for 22 years. How would you define the toll that, you know, hiding that from the world really took on your spirit and you?
I think that every gay person goes through that same series of emotional roller coasters, because you're leading a double life. You're living your life for other people. Oh, I hadn't better tell them who I am, because rejection, in whatever form that might be, from your immediate family to your friends to your schoolmates, whatever it might be, there's this. It's crazy, really. I mean, in today's world, you think it would be easier, but it's not. You know, but for someone like me, back in the 60s, when they were throwing people like me into jail just because a gay bar was being raided, you know, and put in a jail and for 30 days or whatever, it's just horrible to think about that. So I grew up reading about that kind of stuff in newspapers and hearing it on the local news. So wrap that up in this feeling of, why do I feel this way? You know, when society suggests that what I am is not right, what I am is abnormal, you know, the life I'm leading is a sin. You got all that piled onto you as a young person, and no wonder you get into this terrible dysfunctional state, trying to figure out how you're going to continue in your life bearing that kind of that cross, if you will. So you know, then you take that into my professional world as the lead singer of this very strong, powerful kind of, at the time, alpha macho male experience. I mean, this is, you know, again, the early start of metal. It was pretty much male dominated, which, looking at it now, is crazy, because metal is for everybody. And I use the word everybody in the complete context of what everybody means. But you know, again, having to hide that double life, and of course the irony is everybody in the band knew I was a gay man.
Yeah.
And the label and management, and you know, so it was like a dual personality in that respect. I mean, it never really. I don't think my sexual identity never really encroached on my work, but it was just that case of not being able to live your life freely. That was the burden that I carried for so many years.
Yeah. You know, yeah. I mean, did you feel like it was easier for you to come out after you had left Judas Priest? Because obviously it was a few years after that.
Yeah, in hindsight, if I hadn't have made that off-the-cuff remark at the MTV studios, oh, by the way, speaking as a gay man, if I had not have done that, and I had gone back to Priest, still in the closet, who knows? I could still be there. I don't know. I you know, it's a great thing to kind of ponder. It doesn't really have that much value, but the fact was that I did come out when I was away from Priest, so that by the time I did go back, that part of me in my life was already settled and embedded and understood. And so there was no real question of having to confront any of the issues.
Yeah. Just on the note of the alpha male 80s and stuff like that, of Priest in the 80s, I just had a flashback of thinking of a Heavy Metal Parking Lot, the documentary, of course. And there's this woman in the parking lot there just going, Rob, Rob, Rob. I wish you could come to me. I don't know if you see that and you just have a little chuckle or something like that back then.
I'm surprised there hasn't been a T-shirt with "I jump his bones," because I remember.
Yes, that's the line.
I remember she said that. "I jump his bones." Might have to make a T-shirt for the next Priest tour.
You should.
Please jump my bones. Yeah. I mean, again, you know, as I talk about, there are periods in my life when I was, you know, I'm quite openly stating in the book that I was having sexual relations with some girls that I knew, and admittedly there was a guy involved, so it was like the three-way deal from a bisexual perspective. Another beautiful way to live, if that's where you find your peace and your balance.
Yeah.
But I know a lot already. Some of my friends have gone, I never knew you know, with girls. They go, yeah. You know, sexual attraction, you can't put sexual attraction in a box. It happens, you know, regardless. And yeah, I'm a gay guy, but that prevents me? No, it doesn't. You know, if the feelings are there and there's a mutual need, then there you go. That was a long time ago, though. You know, for whatever reason, I'm saying that.
Right. I was, because, you know, obviously love is love, and I also want to just say that
that's right.
Excerpt,
love is love.
Yes.
Love is love.
Yeah.
Yes.
The excerpt that you talked about is on rollingstone.com too. The one that you just talked about the about your threesome.
My tryst, yes.
Yes. Just getting back into like that period when you did come out, obviously it was when you were away from Priest and you were doing Fight and you were doing Two. And in particular, I was a big fan of Fight. Something I was curious about is, what do you feel that you brought from that time away from Priest back into the band when you returned to the band?
Just a better understanding of my sense of being a musician and being able to go to places and do things that I wouldn't have been able to have done otherwise. And taking that first Fight record, War of Words, as a prime example, I pretty much did that whole record myself. I wrote everything. You know, I played all the instruments, made the demos, did everything. And that wasn't really a determined exercise to find out my self-worth as a musician. It was just happening very naturally because of all the years of experience that I'd gained as a songwriter in Priest. But it was fulfilling. I felt that that when I finished that whole process, that was probably something I wouldn't have been able to have done had I not stepped away to pursue some solo activities. And you could say the same for the second Fight album, which was more of a collaboration with some other guys, because we didn't have a band. I had this name of a band, Fight, and it was just me. And then we found all the great players. But by the second album, it was more of a collaboration, just to a great extent. And so were the rest of them, the Halford releases and the one release with John Five and Trent. So it just really let me get a lot of stuff out of my system. And what more than anything, it led me to understand that my true peace and balance and everything that comes with my music is with Judas Priest. You know, that is the band that leads me in my life. But even now, occasionally I'll kind of wander off down a side alley and do a Christmas record like Celestial, you know, just because, you know, I've still got this independent streak, and as long as it doesn't clash with Priest and doesn't get in the way, then I'll take my opportunity to do that, especially with Celestial, where I got to work with my brother Nigel on drums and my nephew Alex on bass, Ian Hill's son. So that was a thrilling thing to do.
Yeah, I loved it. My wife and I played that in the car a lot around Christmas last year, especially like Deck the Halls and stuff like that. I like the spin you put on those.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. It means a lot to me. Christmas is a great experience anyway, whether you believe in the true virtues of it or not. It's just a wonderful time, and we surround ourselves with music for just about everything, don't we? But for a celebration like that, it's all about the music. Like Halloween's coming, and I'll be doing my what was that Manson song in that is it the night before? No, what is it? The Night Before Christmas? No, what am I talking about? That Tim Burton movie. The Halloween music. Yeah.
The Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah.
Thank you. The Nightmare Before Christmas. So all that stuff, it adds texture to whatever we're celebrating throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So just thinking about the book as a whole, obviously you've been doing a lot of press around this, and you know, people have been talking about it. Has there been anything you regret when you look in that you did put in the book? Is there anything that you had second thoughts about now that you included?
No. I don't know whether we've talked about this before, Kory, but I never use regret in my vocabulary. I use reflect, because regret is a negativism for me, and you can't turn back time. You can use the past to reflect upon. You can certainly utilize the mistakes that you've made in the past, so you don't make those same mistakes again. But regret, I can't even say it. It just sounds like a very cold kind of, you know, dead type of thing to say. So, but I do understand your question, and when I was doing the audio for Confess, because it is my voice on the audio book, when I was reading what was coming off the page, there were several times where I had to kind of stop and compose myself, because, you know, talking about those darker moments was traumatic, quite frankly.
Of course, yeah.
Because we all have things that have happened to us in our life that we care to kind of keep hidden or buried or pushed away. But that wasn't the case with Confess. We had to dig everything up that was, you know, in the graveyard, if you will. So that's when it did become quite difficult for me. But again, just because of the way I live my life now, having been clean and sober for so many years, although that doesn't matter. It's one day at a time. Yesterday is gone. It's never coming back. It's living in the moment. But all that stuff that precedes where I am now made me able to bring all that stuff to the surface. And yeah, I mean, even now, I don't know. There are certain people that are going to read this book that might say, why did you say that? You know, why did you disclose this? And then you're in that trap of, okay, so I'm writing this book about my life and what's happened to me, but you don't want me to say that because it's not what you feel I should do. Then what does this become? You know, it's a bit like, I've said so many times, when you're hiding in the closet, you're living your life for other people. You can't do that. You don't deserve to do that to yourself. You need to find a way to kick that closet door open and just, hey, this is me. This is who I am. Unconditional love is acceptance. And so, yeah, there were times in the book doing the audio that I thought, ooh, maybe. But then, you know, 5 minutes later, and a cup of tea, and I'm back on track and, you know, moving ahead.
Yeah. Well, you know, something that struck me just reading it all is obviously you titled the book Confess, and, you know, you want to confess to a priest to get something off your mind. I'm sure you must feel like a weight's been lifted by kind of going through everything all again.
Yeah, to some extent, although that was never my intent. I didn't feel like I had to go and do this for, like, is it Gestalt? I didn't need to do it for that, you know, although it is good for you. I guess I've said, like, some of this book is like sitting down with presumably what it's like with a psychiatrist. You know, I've never been to a psychiatrist, but I understand the great things that these people do, and the way that, you know, getting things off your chest and talking things out in the open is a very healthy thing to do mentally. Speak it out. So many of us carry these things that are inside of us that are constantly doing damage, you know, because we're afraid to address them. And if you can find a way to talk out those inner feelings that are troubling you, it makes your life better. It is a load off your back, however you want to say it. But that certainly wasn't the agenda for me to push in this book. It's just that there are certain things in here, in this book, Confess, that might make people, you know, raise their eyebrows and go, he did what? He said what? This happened, that happened, you know? But for me, that's all good, and that serves the purpose of why this book is called Confess.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look at some questions here from some of the viewers here. The first one that I'm looking at is from a 12-year-old girl named Violet. She says she's a huge Priest fan. She says, I feel as though female vocalists are underrepresented in rock and metal. Who are some of your favorite female leads?
Obviously Gaga. I'm a Gaga fan. Madonna. Let's go to some great female singers like, oh, come on, brain. Hailstorm. Oh, please, why my brain let me remember her beautiful name. Mariah from In This Moment. We did a collaboration together for that Black Wedding track. Who else can I think of? The Butcher Babes.
Yes.
Real hardcore girls. Love that. There's so many I probably can't. Jill from Huntress, who left us sadly a few years ago. She was a great performer. But others going way back, like Elkie Brooks from Vinegar Joe. And do you know who that is, Kory? Have I stumped Kory?
Personally, I don't. You stumped me. You stumped me on that one. You stumped me.
I really encourage you to listen to a band called Vinegar Joe and Elkie Brooks. Her voice is just phenomenal. So there's her, and of course there's Janis Joplin, and you know, at the other end there's Celine Dion, there's Barbara Streisand. There is so much incredible female talent in rock and roll and in music in general, that it's easy for some of those great people to be overlooked. But there's a short list. I'm probably missing a bunch off my list, but there's a few.
Yeah, it's a great list. The next question here is from someone I think I've asked you this question myself, and that's I just love all your cat shirts. Do you buy them, or are they gifts from your family? Also, do you have cats? And if so, how many and what are their names?
Should have bought my picture of Smoky, my cat. I had a cat that passed away some years ago from an illness, and which is horrible. Because your cats are like your kids, you know, and your dogs are like your kids, and your snakes and your rabbits and whatever else it is that you become beautifully attached to. They're an extension of you. And all of these pets give you unconditional love. You know, it's a great thing. But so I haven't had a cat since Mr. Smokey, mostly because I'm away from home so much, and I don't like the idea of leaving him in kitty jail, as I call it. Go away for 6 months. So I suppose I could foster. You know, I hear fostering is a great thing to do, and I encourage that. I've never really, if I'd have known this was going to go on as long as it did, I mean, I still could foster, so who knows? But the cat shirts started some time ago, and I just wore one out of the blue for whatever reason, and they've become a thing. It's a thing now.
Yes.
Cat a day. I've had to kind of cut it down to every couple of weeks now because I'm running out of t-shirt ideas. But I find these t-shirts, you know, get onto the internets and click here and you'll find this one and that one. And it's a fun thing to do. I'll tell you what's cool about that is so many metalheads are into the cat experience.
Yeah.
There are even colouring books, you know, death metal singers with their cats.
Yes.
Colour this and colour that. It just goes to show you. And the other attractive thing I find about cats is they're so fiercely independent, you know. It's like, no, you don't own me, I own you, you know. And you've got a cat. Kory, is your cat with you today?
She is. She's in the other room.
Show everybody your beautiful cat because
I would, but she's in the other room. She's
okay. Kory and I were talking Kory and I were talking the other day, and he held up his kitty cat and waved the paw at me, which is really sweet. So there it is. That's part of my catology.
That's great. Another person's wondering, what is your all-time favorite movie that you never get tired of watching? Oh,
that's a good question. Well, it would be any of the Lord of the Rings trilogies. Very metal, those movies are, aren't they? They're very metal.
Absolutely.
And there's always hope and destination at the end. So those, any of the Marvel movies, the Iron Man movies, the Avenger movies. As you can see, I'm a fantasist. I just love to get lost in a movie. I like all kinds of escapism in movies. I'm watching The Umbrella Academy right now, which is just finally got around to watching that. Just finished watching Warrior Nun on Netflix, which is insane.
I haven't seen it.
Again, it's all escapism. I can take the more serious stuff too, but I found as I've gotten older that I'm drawn more and more to that experience. Like, I can't really watch horror movies, for example. They don't really do anything to me. And don't get me started on these gruesome movies like Saw and whatever I just can't deal with that kind of thing. That's just me personally, you know. I love movies that have excitement and pathos and empathy and positive virtues and lift you up. Those are the kind of things that I'm drawn to.
Yeah, I figured you were into sci-fi just from your lyrics, just all the metal gods and the robots. And
like Dune the book and Dune the movie. I hear they're remaking Dune. I can't wait to see that. Yeah, and of course 2001: A Space Odyssey. I went and saw that at the movies, and that was just unbelievable. So those go way back. Yeah.
Next question that somebody asks is, who were your early inspirations that were influential on the way that you sing?
I mentioned a couple of them, Elkie and Janis Joplin, and then of course Robert Plant and Ian Gillan and Roger Daltrey, and even some of those great classical singers, because the human voice is a remarkable instrument. You don't really know what you can do with your voice until you just let go and and try other things. That's the joy for me of being the singer for Judas Priest, because we cover everything. 1 minute we're your turbo lover, next minute we're the painkiller, you know. So that gives me a great opportunity to have fun and adventures with my voice. So those are a few that immediately pop into my head. Ronnie James Dio, you know, those early greats, Elvis. Yeah, there's a ton of them that really kind of hit me as a young person in music to listen to for inspiration.
Mm-hmm. I think you probably addressed this in your book, but it just occurred to me too. When did you realize that you had your voice, that you could do the things that you do with your voice? Like, it sounded like, I think you said that you sort of found yourself maybe around Sin After Sin, but like obviously you were in the band for a while. But when did you know that I can do this?
Yeah, even before then, with those early bands that I played with, like Hiroshima and Athens Ward and Abraxas, you know, and Lord Lucifer. What a great name for a band. Uh, Again, practice. You don't know what you're capable of until you're in the company of other musicians, and to some extent, you're making it up as you go along. You can't beat a jam, as we call them, just a jam,
Mm-hmm.
especially a blues jam. Can't.
Mm-hmm.
I love blues jams because they're just so pure, the way they take you to all of these extraordinary places. So by the time we made that first Priest album, Rock'n'Roller, there were some of the early representations of what the voice can do.
Mm-hmm.
And then more so with Screaming, rather with Sad Wings of Destiny, and then on to Sin After Sin with Roger Glover at the helm, producing and getting these things out of my voice, and right up until Andy Do It Again Sneap with my vocals on Firepower.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
the voice is remarkable. You can always find a little nuance of a difference in your voice that you've never found before if you're produced correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The next question, and I know that this is in your book, but I think people are probably still curious, is somebody says that they're a big fan of the great Priest covers like Diamonds and Rust and Green Manalishi, and they're wondering whose idea was it to do those? How did the interpretations come together? You know, like how did those come together?
Our label, Columbia CBS at the time, in America, had said that radio is the door. Radio is the key. If we can get tracks from you to play on the radio, that would really put Priest into certain parts of America that you've still not been to, or at least set the tone for you coming into town at some given point. And so the first ever opportunity was with Diamonds and Rust, which is a beautiful, delicate folk song by Joan Baez, just her and her guitar. And we were in Rockville Studios in Wales working on Sad Wings of Destiny originally, at the time that we first heard that track. And it was sent to us in the mail, you know, the British Royal Mail Post. And we knew something was coming. We didn't know what. And we take the 45, Joan Baez, okay, put it on the record player.
Mm-hmm.
And we hear this lady and we hear this song and we're kind of, are they having a laugh? Are they winding us up? Is this a joke? And then we really listened to the song and we went, oh, we got it. We know what the subject is now. We know what the task at hand is. And again, as I've said many times, a great song will take any kind of interpretation. So we took Joan's beautiful ballad, a sweet folk ballad, and made it into a metal monster, and it's become part of Priest's legacy now.
Absolutely. I'm reminded too, I just realized recently that Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, which Led Zeppelin did, that was another Joan song. So Joan has a strong history in hard rock and metal right there.
There you go.
Yeah.
You stumped me there, Kory, because I wasn't even aware of that. I know the song by Zeppelin,
Mm-hmm.
but I had no idea that Joan was behind that one.
Yeah. Another person is just wondering, you know, he says, the first time that I saw Priest was the US Festival in California in 1983. It's sort of a silly question. Do you remember that show? I'm sure you remember that show. And if so, what was your reaction to the crowd?
Remember it vividly for
Mm-hmm.
one or two things that we talk about in the book. They say it was like the second Woodstock, and what I mean by that is, if you see the great movie Woodstock, hundreds of thousands of people showed up, and they just threw their cars anywhere. They was like, you know, miles and miles of land became car parks, you know, and so that was the way that everybody that played at it's called Devore now in Riverside. Is it Riverside, San Bernardino? And the only way we could effectively get in and out, all of us, all the musicians, was to take a helicopter from a local hotel that was the home base. So when we took off, it was only a short flight to the venue, if you want to call it that. But the first thing we saw as we went over, because the Devore is in like a natural amphitheatre, the way the ground is laid out. It's like a kind of a Roman type of amphitheatre kind of thing. The first thing we saw before we even saw the site itself were literally hundreds of thousands of cars just parked and abandoned, and there they were. There wasn't a person in sight, because you went a little bit further and then you saw all this humanity, you know, and there's still now today kind of an ambiguous suggestion that it was 300,000 people or 250,000 people. There was definitely over 200,000 people there. So that's just mad. It's mad, you know. Talk about ants, you know. It's just like this huge sea of humanity. So you land, and then you get up the helicopter, and the first thing that hits you is it's a typical glorious, probably summer fall day in California, and it is like 120 degrees.
Wow.
Now you've got to put on the leather and the whips and the chains. And by the way, you're going on at 3 p.m. in the afternoon or whatever, when it's like peak heat.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And you can see that show. You can see that show easily on YouTube. So yeah, I remember every single element of that show, and the fact that we weren't even able to stick around that much to see the rest of the band, because we flew from helicopter back to the hotel, and then within hours we were on our way back to Spain to start working on the next Priest album, which was Defenders of the Faith, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. But the metal day was the biggest day. It was a three-day event. It was heavy metal and rock. It was new wave, and then it was country music. And the metal day was the biggest day in terms of attendance. It was a great bill. Priest, Triumph, Motley Crue, Scorpions, Van Halen. Ozzy? There's 6, I can remember. There's probably some more I'm missing. It was a great day. One of those never to be repeated again bills of talent.
Yeah. I only got a couple more of these. Somebody says first time that they saw Priest was in '79 opening for Kiss. And they wanted to know, how do you keep your voice in shape for high-range songs such as Victim of Changes after all these years?
It's hit and miss to a certain extent, because my brain is going, okay, I've got to do changes, Victim of Changes, I've got to get there, you know. And my brain's telling me what I can do, and then it's like, here we go, I'm going to go for it. And I do my best at the moment. But I'm blessed, really. I still say that by quitting the drink and the drugs and everything, and just living a healthier life, has made my voice, given my voice a longer go. Because a lot of my friends in music, they've had difficulties with voice nodules or voice strain or whatever else, you know. And it is a part of you as a person. So you have to keep yourself physically fit. And I try and do that all the time. I watch what I eat. I get my exercise, do my swimming, try to keep this temple, this metal temple in the best shape as it can be. And I've been using these vocal cords for 69 years now. And I'm blessed and I'm grateful that I'm able to still utilize it to its best effect. And it's frustrating. It really is frustrating, because I know that I wish I could sing Painkiller like I did in 1991, but I can't, you know. I can only give you my best attempt, and I get most of it, not all of it. I'm always a little bit at the end of each performance, but you just got to try and live with that. You know, it's not like a drummer where you can change the drum skin, or the bass player changes the bass strings. You know, that's no deflection to the great work that Scott and Ian do. But I'm just using that as if something breaks, you can fix it. You know, with your voice, you can't. You know, so you know, it does generally do what my brain tells it to do.
I'll say I recently was listening to the Battle Cry version of Victim of Changes, and that's just as great as the Unleashed in the East version. So
I was having a good night that night, Kory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were.
Yeah.
It's kind of good.
Yeah. It was, things were all connecting.
Yeah. The last question here is somebody asks, is Glenn involved in the writing of the follow-up to Firepower? And maybe you just want to give just everyone a little bit update on what Priest is up to now in general.
Thank you for asking about Glenn. Whenever anybody asks about Glenn, I always let Glenn know, and I'll send him a text or an email after we've finished here. Because he's still a fully active member of Judas Priest. And what I mean by that is, like he's always been, he's a songwriter. We've already begun working on the next Priest album, Glenn and Richie and myself. We already had one great writing session of a month or more before the pandemic shut everything down. We've still got a ways to go, but we've kind of kicked the tires, and we've got some great songs, really strong songs, and they have to be to follow up from Firepower. With his Parkinson's, it's a cruel thing to happen to a musician. It's a cruel thing to happen to anybody in life.
Yeah.
But when it affects your ability to play, I just don't know. I can't even comprehend how that must feel. You know, it would be like saying to me, "Well, Rob, you can't sing anymore." But Glenn is a great true survivor of this battle that he's in. Hence the song "No Surrender," and he makes his very important contributions, and you know, he can still play the guitar, albeit in a slightly different way, but he can get his point across. You know, we'll work with Richie, and he'll go, "I've got this thing here," and then Richie, let me listen, and then Richie gets it. "You mean this?" "Yeah, that's it." "Now, can you just play it with that slight inflection here?" And Richie gets it time after time after time. Wow. Which is an inspiration. When anybody is dealing with that kind of challenge, you have to remain positive, not just the person themselves. I can't really speak for that, but I know that if you surround yourself with positivity, that's a great thing to have. That's a great thing to have, no matter how difficult it is. You've got to surround and love and lift and help and do whatever you can, and that's a good thing to do for anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great note to end on too. And I see a lot of love for Glenn in the chat over here on the right of the screen. And I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I'm sure everyone will be really excited about the book. The book is incredible when you get to read it, if you haven't already. Thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, Kory. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, Book Soup. It's been beautiful. I've really enjoyed this heavy metal Zoom today. Yes. And I wish you all the best. Excuse me. And keep washing your hands and staying 6 feet away from each other and all that other important stuff. Listen to the scientists, please, not the politicians, and the people that know what they're talking about. There's my little speech. It's been great. Thank you, Samantha. Can everybody see Samantha? Samantha's over here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Rob. Kory, you summed it up perfectly at the end. And then Rob, of course, you added on. That was the perfect way to end it. So I'm not going to say any more, except thank you, everyone, for supporting independent bookstores right now. It's so important. And thank you both for taking the time to do this with us. It's been amazing.
Thank you, everybody. I love you all very much. Stay safe, stay sound, stay metal. And we'll see you when we get back on the road together. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Good night.
See you, Rob.
Good night.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. So good to meet you both.